Hello, and welcome back to another video. This is the first episode of story in which Naruto is grandson of Madara Uchiha. Naruto learns of this when his Sharingan activates. Let's see how Naruto Uzumaki Uchiha takes world by storm. After you've finished watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Uzumaki Naruto is a smart boy. It is a fact that he acknowledges and understands, because that's what everyone tells him, so it must be true. Tsukimi, the orphanage matron, is the one who tells him this the most. She is different from other people because she has deep lines on her face and her hair is gray. When he asks her why that is, she tells him that it's because when people get very old, they start showing signs of aging. The old woman is nice. She gives him and the other kids sweets sometimes when they're good, but sometimes has difficulty getting all of them to bed. But not all adults are like she is, Naruto notices. Sometimes there is an old man that people call Hokage-sama even though he isn't Hokage anymore, and he stops by to see how the older kids who became Jonin are doing. He seems nice, but he looks at Naruto strangely, tells him that he was a friend of Naruto's parents but won't actually say their names when Naruto asks. Politely, even. Sometimes. Naruto ignores this, however. If the old fart doesn't have anything good to tell him, then Naruto isn't going to listen. So because the retired, a word he learned from Tsukimi Bakken, Hokage wouldn't teach him anything, and the Jonin kids always ignore him, he tried rummaging through the old books that the orphanage had to find anything that could help. He eventually finds a discarded and wrecked book that one of the academy students threw away, and after skimming through the pages that weren't destroyed, he finds something called the leaf sticking exercise. He wants to learn it. Apparently, chakra control is something that people need to learn in order to be a shinobi, and Naruto desperately wants to be one. His drive for it was quite simple. One day, when Tsukimi Bakken's back was turned, an older boy snatched a locket from a girl that was Naruto's age. The girl cried and begged him to give it back, saying that it was the only thing that she owned that had her parents' faces in it. Naruto didn't know he could get so angry, but he did and punched the older boy in the face, just like the Jonin kids punched the dummies outside. The boy dropped the locket and started crying louder than the girl, whining for Tsukimi Bakken at the top of his lungs, and Naruto is so completely satisfied with the hug he gets for returning the girl's locket that it makes the scolding he gets utterly worth it. It had been so thrilling, and it was then that Naruto decided he was going to be a shinobi. Even if he didn't understand which he liked more between fighting and the girl's hug. The older boy hasn't tried picking on anyone since. Disregarding his motive for a moment, he still needs permission to go out. Tsukimi Bakken? Naruto looks up at the matron. She seems to be in a good mood today. Yes, Naruto-kun? She gives her usual smile. Can I go outside to the trees? Naruto pleads. It is one of his favorite things to do because he always gets to see the shinobi kids training and jumping from tree to tree. Even though that isn't what he's going outside for this time. Tsukimi sighs, but her smile doesn't go away. Another thing that confuses him. You can, Naruto-kun, but you have to promise me something. Promise what? Naruto's brow furrows. Be back before the sun is down, or I'll have to call the shinobi to come get you. Tsukimi looks down at him in a way that said that he probably shouldn't disobey. I promise. Naruto nods resolutely. Tsukimi just manages to ruffle his hair before running off. Naruto doesn't bother to hide his grin. He finally gets to train. Hatake Kakashi is a weary shinobi. Young, but weary. It is a fact that he acknowledges and understands, because it means that the people around him won't shut up about him needing some time off. During and after the Third Shinobi World War, Kakashi had what was either a slew of bad luck, or the gods had decided fuck this person in particular. His first friend had died saving their teammate, giving him a gift that no amount of money or gold could equate to, and then he was forced to kill said teammate for the sake of keeping Konoha safe. The death of his much-loved sensei followed, taking with him the woman that he considered an older sister. Things had not been looking up for him at that point, but he endured. After the Kyuubi attack, Sundaime-sama delegated the next Hokage to be Tsunade. Kakashi distinctly remembers the shouting match that followed this decision, but Tsunade-sama eventually capitulated and became the Godime Hokage. She is a good Hokage, Kakashi knows, if a little bit temperamental. Her actions regarding Kumo's attempt to kidnap the Hyuga heiress was something that cemented his faith in her as a leader. She had been utterly ruthless with them. They had knowingly used Konoha's goodwill against them and tested the waters too deep. They threatened war against Konoha for killing their ambassador/kidnapper, to which Tsunade retorted that they had already taken on the world 3 times now, and if Kumo wanted to fight, they wouldn't have a village to fight for afterwards. She could not be cowed with threats, and she knew they could not be defeated right now. Kumagakure was sent home with their tails between their legs, and their reputation in tatters. Kakashi is vindictively pleased by this. Not only does it improve Konoha's standing in the eyes of non-shinobi in terms of strength and sense of justice, but a guiltless little girl gets to keep her livelihood and her family remains unbroken. Family is something that he appreciates greatly. Kakashi thinks privately that recent ally Sunagakure is impressed with Tsunade's attitude as well, made evident by the large jug of very expensive sake sent to her by the Kazekage as a token of goodwill. It's been 5 long years since that night the Kyuubi appeared. Things aren't getting worse for him, but despite some notable moments, they aren't really getting much better either. He is an Anbu still, rising to captaincy since being placed here by his sensei before his passing. And everything is a blur these days. Wake up, eat mission, come home, eat, shower, sleep. It is routine and boring, but he doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't have experience with other matters like friendship and love. He takes notice of women and wonders what it would be like to have a wife, but he isn't bold enough with them to make an advance. He tries to ignore his regular woes however, and focuses on his duty. He is still on patrol after all. It wouldn't do well to have something bad happen under his watch. He has some attachment to his own credibility after all. Lost in his own thoughts, he unintentionally meanders into Riverside Park. Kakashi sees a boy with eyes and hair like Obito's. The spiky locks are a bit longer though, looking more like sensei. His face looks a bit more focused than Obito's ever did around that age. The boy is carrying a tattered book under one arm and a water bottle in the other. He is whimsically intrigued, and tries to catch his scent on the wind to see if the boy was related to anyone he knew, and he pauses. The boy's looks are familiar, but the scent is more so. He knows this scent like the back of his hand, and his mind blanks in conflict with joy and shame. This boy looks nothing like the two who sired him, but there is no question that he is theirs. Genes were funny sometimes. But this boy was meant to be his family. Kakashi often wonders what it might have been like. Him being the older brother, Sensei being the long-suffering but stern father, and Kushina, the fiery and embarrassing but loving and effective mother. Sarutobi told him that Naruto was dead. Sarutobi was about to be dead. Uchiha Madara is older than dirt. It is a fact that he acknowledges and understands, because it means that his time is running out. He had lived far longer than any normal human being should be conceivably possible to do, even the Uzumaki. After the battle with Hashirama in the valley and the subsequent faking of his death, he'd spent decades cultivating the DNA that he'd taken in an attempt to prolong his life and achieve the power that the stone tablet spoke of. But Madara had not been idle. In between his experiments with Hashirama's chakra and flesh, he'd been out in the world, trying to remember why he fought to bring peace to the war-torn lands of the elemental nations. And the answer came to him after many years, in the form of a stubborn crimson-haired woman and the equally fiery child she bore him. His natural protective instincts brought themselves to the surface of his mind with a vengeance. After all, the daughter of Uchiha Madara would be hunted until her last days. With some advice from his new wife, he developed a Junjutsu to be placed on Kushina's heart which would seal away her Uchiha power before it could surface. Her once black hair turned as red as her mother's, and her eyes violet. And so it was that Uchiha Kushina became Uzumaki Kushina, whose chakra was still so abnormally strong that Konoha decided that their previous Jinchuriki had run its course and it was time to replace her with someone younger and more powerful. Madara's opinion of Konoha had lowered further than he thought it could be at this point, but at least new Kushina would be kept safe. He had already been old by the time Kushina was born, and his dear wife Haruka's health had been failing. And at least this way he could still watch Kushina from the shadows. His plan went back into motion, but he always kept his eyes on Konoha. Kushina only ever knew him as Ata-san, so she remained ignorant for the most part about her heritage. Haruka sent a message to Kushina telling her that Madara had passed away peacefully in his sleep a year after her departure. She left out his actual name, but the stone on his empty grave read Uzumaki Izuna. He hoped his brother didn't mind but knew that Izuna would have liked Haruka, even if he wouldn't like the rest of the Uzumaki. Over time, Madara's bitterness for the shinobi world started to come back. Everywhere he looked, there was some form of misery to be found. His wife was falling incurably ill, the side effect of being treated with infected tools after a scuffle with some Iwa shinobi prodding Uzu's borders. Smaller nations suffered, with orphans created by selfish larger nations. Around every corner of the world, the shinobi nations caused pain. Haruka's death had only made Madara accelerate his plans. By then he had awakened the Rinnegan and summoned the Gedo Mazo before he transplanted the eyes into an Uzumaki orphan whose own chakra would sustain the eyes, whilst keeping a spare eye on a boy who held greater potential than even Namikaze Minato or the Sun Daime Hokage. As time passed and Obito was in his clutches, he entrusted Kurosetsu and Obito to enact the plan and once again faked his death by using Izanagi, programmed to bring him back after 5 years. After transplanting his original eyes back into himself, he spent some time evaluating the changes to the world and one single, glaring fact stood out and made Madara's blood boil. Kushina is dead. She and her husband died after Obito ripped the Kyuubi out of her, which told Madara something else, that Kushina had also been pregnant. But apparently, Kushina had sensed that Madara didn't know she was capable of, and before the Yondaime could seal away the Kyuubi into their newborn son, she teleported it away with an advanced Shikuken ninjutsu that took the full remainder of her chakra and life force to do but left the child without any Kyuubi sealed in him. Kushina would have died anyway with the Kyuubi ripped out of her, but Madara admired that even on the brink of death, Kushina would not let her son be used for Konoha's greater good. Sacrifices needed to be made, but Konoha's reliance on the Baijuo to maintain the imaginary balance of power was pure weakness. As much as he hated the fact that Kushina was dead, it may very well have been the best decision. If she had sealed the Kyuubi back into herself, she wouldn't have been able to avoid attention from village officials that would attempt to weaponize her. It would have painted a huge target on her back for not only spiteful villagers but other greedy nations. Minato had died too in a combination of chakra exhaustion and giant claw through the stomach, but Madara didn't mourn the man. Such loyalty to a place like Konoha was enough for Madara to dislike him, and with his grandson now free of the Minato's influence, the boy could be taught to think for himself like a true Uchiha should. Madara didn't doubt that Minato would have tried to get Naruto into the trap of village above all and be self-sacrificial. Madara sighed and stood up, his ancient bones actually creaking as he did so. He knew he didn't have much time left and Hashirama's DNA would only support him for so long, but he could at least spend his last years raising his grandson and turning him into every bit the legend Madara himself was. He would make sure of it. Spiky black hair with a slight blue tint. Check. Charcoal black eyes and a fair but healthy skin tone. Check. Unnaturally powerful chakra and abnormally large reserves. Check. This was definitely his grandson. If it weren't for a DNA test or being able to sense the chakra similarities, no one would have guessed he was Kushina or Minato's son too. The resemblance between Naruto and a young Madara was startling. If he were to hazard a guess, he would say that Naruto as a 5-year-old had as much chakra as Madara himself did at almost 8. Something easily attributed to his Uzumaki genes combined with the Uchiha. Taking a closer look, he saw that the boy was sitting underneath a tree by the artificial extension of Naka River that ran through Konoha from one side to another. This area was particularly quiet regarding civilian foot traffic, which was probably why Naruto chose it for the little chakra control exercise he was doing. It didn't surprise him that such a serene place could be found in Konoha. It was a very large village and there were even a few large parks that could be mistaken as forests within the walls. A leaf was stuck to his forehead. By the bored look on the boy's face, Madara could tell that Naruto had been there a while and had most likely mastered the exercise not long ago. He inwardly praised the patience it took. With reserves like Naruto's, he'd probably been out for hours. Still, that control would remain with him for the rest of his life. Madara also reasoned that now that Naruto had mastered the exercise he grew bored with nothing else to occupy him. He looks up to the sky. Perfect. It's only midday, giving Madara the opportunity to confront the boy and get the ball rolling. He stepped out of the trees, purposefully brushing his legs against a bush to get the boy's attention. Sure enough, Naruto looked his way and eyed him with all the suspicion a 5-year-old could muster. "Hello, child." Madara greets in his aged baritone, as though it isn't strange for an old man in a cloak to be approaching a young boy. "Hello." Naruto replied politely but still suspicious. "I noticed that you were practicing chakra control while out on my walk. Are you training to become a shinobi?" Madara asked, spinning a conversation as a typical old man would. "Yeah." Naruto seemed to relax and a bit of excitement entered his expression. "I can stick a leaf to my forehead now. Very impressive for someone your age." Madara commended. "How long did it take you?" "I dunno," Naruto shrugs boredly. "But it was ages. I came out when I woke up." "How did you learn the leaf sticking exercise?" "You have to be much older to join the academy." Madara was genuinely a bit curious. "I read it in an old book at the orphanage." Naruto reveals, looking proud, but the look was replaced with an annoyed frown. "The rest of the book was all wrecked though. I don't know what to do now." Madara's lips twitched. So that was why he was looking so bored earlier. "You must be good at reading then?" he asks conversationally. Naruto nods, expression proud. "Yeah. Tsukimi Bakken lets me go early since the other kids can't read so well yet." The woes of advancing faster than your peers. Prodigies often knew it too well. You know, I could teach you something too. Madara offers slyly. Like what? Naruto walks up to him, reservations and suspicion temporarily forgotten. Madara nearly smiles, wondering if he had ever been this trusting as a child. Well, I could teach you some more chakra control. I was a shinobi once too, you know. A strong one. Madara reveals. Really? Naruto seemed doubtful. Most likely thinking an old man couldn't really be strong. How about we make a deal? If you can master this new exercise before the day is up, I'll come back and teach you ninjutsu tomorrow. Naruto is almost visibly vibrating in excitement. Madara went into an explanation about what the tree climbing exercise was, along with a quick demonstration. Naruto soaked up everything the old man had to say, and just before he began his own attempts at the exercise, he poses a question. Hey G-san, what's your name? It's polite to give your name first. The old man chastised mildly. Naruto looked a bit embarrassed at the reprimand but spoke up. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Well, Naruto. You can call me Madara. Now get to it, the day won't last forever. As Naruto sped up the tree and made it a not-so-astonishing 3 steps up before falling flat on his back, Madara thought that things had gone better than he could have expected them to. In time he would reveal the truth to Naruto about his heritage, but for now oof. Naruto wheezed again after failing. He wouldn't mind a few more days like this before he died again. They were few and far in between in his life. Naruto wasn't fully Uchiha. He was an Uzumaki, a senju by principle. He took traits from both and yet, he seemed to be something entirely different. Madara watched as Naruto confidently jumped down from the top of the tree and landed softly on the dirt road, a feat that probably would have at least fractured the bones of any other child his age. But the differences were all physical, except in appearance. Naruto's chakra was already strong without training, and his body was more durable in every way when compared to a Uchiha or Senju child. When it came to looks and personality however, Naruto was truly Madara's grandson, especially regarding their minds. He snapped back at Madara when he teased the boy, and he made more and more progress up the tree with every failure. Madara didn't let these thoughts distract him from raising Naruto. If anything, the presence of an Uzumaki body would merely enhance the boy's pre-existing natural talents such as the Sharingan and chakra strength to a greater level of potential. To what level was anyone's guess, seeing as the natural birth of a Uchiha and Uzumaki child in one had never occurred during the entire duration of recorded history, Kushina being a modified exception. On top of that, Madara was different to every other Uchiha who had ever awoken the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. He managed to reproduce before dying. Even he couldn't predict what kind of effects that would have on Naruto, being the only descendant of someone like him. Worst case? It meant nothing. Best case would be freedom from a curse. In fact, Madara may very well have died before attaining the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, and never discovered the solution to its crippling, inevitable blindness. He was haunted by the loss of Izuna, and in his grief took the only thing he could to continue the fight. Izuna's eyes had never failed him. Madara would always remember that day. The day he lost his last brother, and the trust of his clan. I did it. Naruto cheers, snapping him out of his thoughts. I got to the top. You said that you would teach me ninjutsu. I said that I would teach you one, and tomorrow. Madara's cracked lips twitch. It's getting late, Naruto. The sun was nearly down already. As much as he would like to spend more time with Naruto, it would be suspicious if the boy didn't go back to the orphanage. And from what Madara understood, this was the first time that Naruto had ever trained in the shinobi arts. No matter how much energy and chakra Naruto had, his body wasn't ready for that level of rigorous training yet. Madara would wait until he was certain that Naruto could handle it. Naruto looks around and notices that it's getting dark. His lips tilt down. I should go, G-san. Good night, Naruto. Come back early tomorrow for the jutsu. Madara nods stoically. Naruto smiles a bit tiredly, but picks up his book and water bottle and turns down the beaten path. Naruto. The boy looks back and takes in Madara's sharp expression. Don't tell anyone about me. Not even the person you trust the most. Naruto picks up on the seriousness in his tone, and gives him a nod. His expression slackens. The younger between them gives him a wave and runs off. That brat. Madara chuckles wryly. Only 5 years old and mastering Shinnon-level chakra control exercises. 2 in one day. That kind of determination was scary in the shinobi world, especially with a lineage like his. He hadn't asked for help, instead going purely on trial and error. He heaves a deep sigh and manages to pick himself up off the bench, using his cane for balance. Things can be taken slowly for now, but he is still plotting. He toils over a plan in his head on how to make his grandson reach his full potential. He is not a good man, but he would do anything for his loved ones. Madara does not stop thinking until he reaches the village wall and the stars are out. He is careful in making sure that no village guard sees him and taps a part of the wall lightly with his cane, just hard enough to push a panel in. A wooden hatch opens up, enough for him to duck under without too much stress on his back. He built this entrance to an underground hideout for his personal use up until he left the village. Judging by the amount of dust that had gathered and how his belongings were all untouched, it seemed as though no one had yet discovered it. No matter. For now, it was just a place to hide between the times that he got to see Naruto. He takes a seat on the wooden throne, dust exploding from the cushion despite the gentle dip, and falls into a deep sleep instantly. Naruto drops into his bed after he eats dinner and has a bath. "Big day, Naruto-chan?" Tsukimi teases after tucking him in. He doesn't answer, but he does let out a quiet snore into his pillow. Hiruzen has barely a chance to blink before he is picked up by his throat and slammed against the wall of his office. He does take note of a masked man with a red left eye, giving him a glare of pure hatred. Oh dear. This wasn't how he expected his evening to go. Kakashi. Sarutobi sputters, choking on his words. "You lied to me." Kakashi's voice is comparatively calm compared to his eyes. Someone steps into the room and gasps in shock. "Kakashi. What are you doing?" The newcomer shrieks. Sarutobi recognizes it as Shizune, Tsunade's young apprentice. "You told me that he was dead, so why?" Kakashi's grip tightens. "Did I find a child with Sensei's and Kushina's scent?" The copy nin's voice rose with every word, angrier and angrier. Sarutobi cannot answer. Partly because he doesn't think that the "for your own good" and his excuse will do anything to soothe the Onbu's anger. Mostly because his throat was being crushed. Suddenly he is dropped and he falls to his knees. He gasps for air, mouth moving like a fish out of water. "Kakashi." Another voice barks. "Tsunade this time. What the hell was that about? Answer me." "He told me that Naruto was dead." Kakashi's voice is consumed in frustration, enough to ignore protocol. "I found Naruto playing near the river." "Why? Why wasn't I told?" "Naruto?" Tsunade's hard tone is replaced by confusion. "What do you mean you thought he was dead?" Sarutobi realizes that things will not go well for him when she finds out what he has done. After Sensei and Kushina, Kakashi swallows thickly. "Died, Sarutobi told me that their son was dead. But I found him. He was meant to be my responsibility." "Kakashi, I need you to calm down." Kakashi heeds her words, but does not stop his hateful glare. "What's your excuse?" Tsunade asks him, a bit menacingly. "Lying to one of my shinobi like this?" "The village," he rasped desperately. "The village was weak. Kakashi-kun was needed. Kakashi would be of greater use with passable mental health. You're going to have to come up with something better for undermining my authority like this." Tsunade interrupts him ruthlessly. Tsunade turns away from him in mute disgust. It breaks his heart that another one of his precious students feels that way about him. "Shizune, take Kakashi to the waiting room." Tsunade orders. "I need to have a word with my former advisor." "Why yes, Tsunade-sama." Shizune hoops her arm around Kakashi's and drags him out, pointedly looking away from Hiruzen. Kakashi allows her to lead him out, but his Sharingan is glinting more viciously than any Uchiha that the old man has ever met. There is a moment of silence while the Sandaime drags himself back into his chair. He wasn't going to lie to himself. He was truly terrified of what Kakashi could have done to him if Shizune-chan and Tsunade hadn't been there to save him. There was a reason that he was only an advising old man. He was well and truly beyond any combat capacity he might have had a mere few years earlier. "I don't think that I need to tell you that you're being asked to leave." Tsunade starts off. This manipulative behavior has a time and place, when it serves to protect Konoha and its subjects. Hiding this from Kakashi was a bad idea, but what I'm confused about is why you thought it would even work, even if it had been the right thing to do. "I can't trust your input any longer." The hardness in her tone has returned. But it is the truth that hurts him more. So he nods silently. "Good." Tsunade nods in satisfaction. Tsunade steps out of the room, no doubt to assess Kakashi's current state. Hiruzen silently despairs at her cold dismissal, but having things put into perspective like that makes him realize that he had probably only made things worse, and he knows that he has brought his suffering upon himself. Deep down, Hiruzen acknowledges that maybe he had put the village itself before the subjects too often. He thought he was doing what was best, But it should have been obvious that an emotionally traumatized boy like Kakashi could have been thrown completely off the deep end and become a gigantic flight risk. Because of his stupidity. Kakashi's constant enduring of underappreciation and mental stress speaks well of his character, but not of the people he is supposed to protect. They remain ignorant of the perils he goes through each and every day. Hiruzen wipes his eyes and picks up his belongings. He has no right to interfere anymore. Orochimaru was lost to him long ago and Tsunade was seeing him for what he truly was. He only hoped that his last student would see him as he always had. Tsunade sighs as she steps into the hall. It was just one thing after another today. Though to be fair, she hadn't expected Kakashi of all people to assault a former Hokage. Seeing Naruto must have riled him up beyond his normal sense of calm. Naruto. She'd heard whispers of another prodigy to be from teams that babysat at the orphanage. They would complain about one boy in particular that was a handful, even for the Jounin. He showed a remarkable ability to pick up what he watched, and the story about him getting into a fight over some girl's pendant still made her smile. She thought back to his parents. She wasn't actually well acquainted with Kushina, despite the relation, but she did know Minato. Mostly because Jiraiya wouldn't shut up about him when the kid was his student and always brought Minato with him when he saw Tsunade, if only to show him off. The kid was flaky and annoying, but both he and Kushina had been taken before their time. Nobody deserves dying with the knowledge that their child's future is uncertain. And there's Kakashi too. Tsunade sighs again as she steps into the conference room, where she sees Shizune chattering to a quiet Kakashi. The kid had seriously been through some tough shit. Having to look after himself after his father commits suicide and finding the body himself one night was bound to have some psychological effect on him. But then proceeding to lose two close friends, one of which he had to kill, and a sensei that was probably more like a father figure to him, it was going to get to the point that Kakashi just wouldn't be able to keep himself afloat in his own despair. She needed to do something immediately. She thinks back to Sakumo. The man had no attachment or bonds to help his mental state save for his son, but wasn't discouraged from doing the honorable thing and removing himself from Kakashi's life. With the way things were going, Kakashi may very well do the same thing as an escape from being unable to cope with his losses. Tsunade toils over it for a while, watching Shizune comfort Kakashi out of the corner of her eye, and thinks she may have a plan. She strides into the room and plants herself in front of the frozen Anbu. "Alright kid, this is how it's going to be." Tsunade puts on her best stern voice. "I'm giving you another 5 years in Anbu at maximum, after that, you're going to become a Jounin sensei." Kakashi's face becomes instantly disbelieving and he nearly shoots out of his chair to protest, but Tsunade is quick to settle him down. "You can, of course, send your new subordinates back to the academy if they fail your test, but at the end of the next 5 years, you will not be returning to Anbu. For all intents and purposes, you will be another public Jounin." Kakashi looks quite flabbergasted when she is done, making her smirk with open amusement. Shizune seems hopeful, and Tsunade knows that her student is concerned for Kakashi for more than one reason. The Jounin isn't exactly fit to take care of a child in the capacity of a family member, but she thinks that he can probably take up a position as a sensei and help not only his students, but himself. After a few silent minutes, Kakashi breathes out a resigned breath and manages to say only one thing. "Hi." Tsunade smiles, and hopes that she has done right by the kid. "We can talk about your assault of a Konoha citizen another time. And your enrollment in an instructor's course to see if you actually are fit to teach Shinon. You overreacted. Badly. You're going to be punished, regardless of your station." Kakashi's head droops. "Do you even know how to use hand signs?" Madara's question halts Naruto's desire to dive straight into learning the ninjutsu the old man promised him, and he realizes that no, he doesn't know how to use them. The old man sighs and mutters something about more than just blood before beckoning him over with his hand. Here, Madara stops him, but close enough to see his hands. This is the Ram seal. It's the most commonly used seal because it is the only neutral seal. All it does is speed up your chakra so that it can be used for breaking genjutsu or activating an ninjutsu that you are already skilled in. And this went on until Madara had shown him all 12 basic signs, and made him repeat them back to him while doing them. A correction here and there, and nearly half an hour later, Naruto could perform all of them well enough to perform a jutsu. The seals you need for this jutsu are first, tiger, ram, monkey, boar, horse, and tiger again. Madara weaves the signs as he says them and takes a deep breath. Facing the river, he breaths out the jutsu. Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu. Naruto gulps when a house-sized fireball engulfs his vision. The old man's hair billows behind him as the jutsu boils the water and cooks whatever is unlucky enough to be caught under the gigantic flame. Madara stops the jutsu when he runs out of breath, and Naruto is still in complete awe. "I'm gonna learn that?" He is given a gentle push from Madara's cane and it's enough for him to clumsily fly through the signs 3 times before getting them right enough for a first attempt. Madara turns and sits on a wooden bench. Madara waves a hand-sized fan to stave off the heat. There isn't exactly much shade right next to the river, but he wants to watch his grandson master the coming of age for the Uchiha clan, even if said grandson doesn't know it yet. He smirked at Naruto's first attempt when he blows out a flame as big as a house cat, just like his own father laughed at him for doing the same. Naruto's shocked exclamation of annoyance makes him even more amused. And then Naruto sets to work with the same perfectionist attitude that he did to master the chakra control exercises yesterday. He stands in place for hours, weaving the same hand signs over and over again, and by midday he can create a fireball as tall as Madara. He is impressed. Very impressed. But it isn't just the small amount of time that Naruto has spent on this jutsu, but rather how little chakra the boy has used over the course of the day. Maybe little wasn't describing it accurately. It was more a matter of the great quantities of chakra that Naruto has used over the day having had no major impact on his reserves. Even a seasoned Uchiha Jonin would be hard-pressed to match Naruto's, featuring it was usually quite common for an Uchiha child to master the jutsu in a few days, but like Madara at that age, Naruto's chakra coils weren't able to express the full strength of his chakra through them yet. The lungs didn't magically fill up with fire chakra, they were supplied to by the tenketsu attached to them, which needed training through use to apply more chakra. It was vital that Naruto learn how this worked before he got older. If he were to receive an ignorant teacher to the nature of chakra as a whole, then Naruto would be at risk of never reaching his full potential using it. As the hours pass, Naruto's fireball becomes more than adequate for his age, and Madara believes that he has mastered the jutsu. All that was left was to grow older in order to make him more capable of using it. Naruto. Madara beckons, and his grandson bounds over, face alight with joy. "I can make the fireball now." "Yes, you can." Madara agrees, but with grim voice to capture Naruto's attention. But ninjutsu also comes with responsibility. If you show off your jutsu without thinking about the consequences, you might get in trouble. Or worse, the enemies you'll meet when you grow up and graduate will have the upper hand. Naruto didn't really seem to understand, so Madara was forced to endure a good 20 Ys in a row. "So the bad guys won't know how to beat me if I keep it secret?" "That's right. Good lad." Naruto beamed. It is the first of many lessons subtly taught, enough that Naruto's young mind would keep it up without questioning it. Over the course 3 years, Madara was forced to realize that in his current condition, there were just some things he could not do for Naruto. Naruto had just turned 8, which meant he was finally ready to start Shinobi Academy. He would be bouncing if Gigi hadn't been strict about being too emotional or whatever. He was done with kiddie school. He was allowed to be happy. Tsukimi Bakken had equipped him with some flip-flops and a kimono shirt, and some pencils and books that he was supposed to need. He recognized one of them as a book he learned the leaf-sticking exercise from. It was nice looking at a new one instead of the tatty one he had before. Gigi always said you should take care of your belongings, especially your equipment that you need. There were lots of kids around. He guessed they were going to be his classmates. It was kinda funny how they all looked like baby versions of the adults standing with them. Was that normal? Maybe he needed to ask Bakken. Gigi knew a whole lot too. Uzumaki Naruto. His name is called by a man with a scar on his face. He steps forward, arm raised. "Here." Several adults look at him. It makes him feel a little shy, the way they speak to each other in hushed whispers. Naruto doesn't like it. "Who can tell me the 2 founding clans of Konohagakure no Sato?" A pink-haired girl raises her hand. "Your name again please?" Iruka-sensei is very polite. Not like the previous teachers. "Haruno Sakura." She chirps, standing up. "The Senju clan and the Uchiha clan." "Very good, Sakura-chan. Take a seat." "Now, can someone else tell me who the leaders of those clans were?" "Senju Hashirama." A boisterous voice shouts from the back row. Naruto looks back and doesn't recognize them as one of the clan kids. "Raise your hand if you would like to answer." Iruka-sensei ignores the shout, so Naruto raises his hand. "Name?" "Uzumaki Naruto." He stands up. Senju Hashirama was the leader of the Senju clan. "That's right. Take a seat." He does so as the loud boy in the back squawks indignantly. It almost makes him smile. Iruka speaks up again. "I heard one of the clan leaders' names, but not the other. Can someone tell me who the other leader was?" His eyes seem to trail deliberately over another dark-haired boy's. Said boy raises his hand. Uchiha Sasuke, he stated without being asked. The leader of the other clan was Uchiha Madara. What? Naruto couldn't stop thinking about the name Uchiha Madara, but he didn't see Madara for nearly a week. I waited for you but you didn't show up. Naruto scowled. His youthful petulance had only been tamed so much. Don't be so quick in jumping to conclusions. You failed to notice that you were being watched last week. Watched? Naruto looked alarmed, but was also trying to hide his guilt at sounding so pushy to the old man that was teaching him. Yes, I did not reveal myself because it seems that your fellow orphans decided to follow you here. Madara revealed, purposely adding a mite of annoyance to his voice. You need to practice taijutsu anyway. An old man like me can't do anything more than tell you what to do. That might work for jutsu but not for things that will hit you back. Naruto looked more guilty, but it seemed he didn't want to completely concede fault. He could have a worse trade in Madara's opinion. Not wanting to give up was a valuable behavior, but knowing the facts and choosing his battles was another thing Naruto needed to learn. But why does that matter? You could have taught them too. I also don't want to train them, Naruto. I chose you to train for a reason. Madara baited. But why? Was the golden question. Madara smiled. All I will say is that we have a connection, and you have vast potential. You can find out yourself exactly why it is that I am interested in your growth in particular. Konoha has a wealth of information at its disposal, and its history since the foundation of the village is well recorded. Figure out our connection, and then you will understand. You have my name already, and you have yours. Start there. Naruto stayed silent while Madara sat down on the bench. This link that we share is the reason that I must remain a secret to those around you. It is the reason why your life is at risk for as long as you remain weak. I have a great deal of knowledge myself, and that knowledge may be used to harm you if you recklessly give it away to just anybody, orphans or otherwise. So go. I will be here at the same time, every week, and when you have gained the knowledge you need to understand why I have chosen you, ask, I shall answer all of your questions. A deep breath, so that his dusty lungs could continue. When you can be bothered, that is. You are young and full of life. Konoha was built so that children like you could flourish and be given the time to become strong adults. When you are ready, look for answers. Until then, you'll just have to put up with being annoyed with the way I'll train you. Madara took a deep breath of the fresh Konoha air. It seemed things were going to go quicker than he thought. But perhaps that was for the best. He was on his last legs, so to speak. A man more bone and dust than anything else. Naruto was a citizen of Konoha, and that afforded him a service in the form of caretakers and friends that could help him adjust to modern parlance and social cues, and it gave Madara the ability to focus on actually teaching Naruto abilities, and providing educational hints on what might be a good thing to believe in order to preserve and advance what he cared about. He felt that while Naruto was too young to impart his age-earned philosophies and beliefs upon, he could set puzzle pieces in the mind of his grandson. So that when an event occurred that was related to something he spoke of, a piece would fall in place and Naruto would unintentionally understand something that he might not even remember being taught. It was like teaching him to walk, he liked to think. Madara did not have the time left on this earth to mold him in every way, but Obito hadn't exactly turned out how he wanted when trying to turn him into the second coming of Uchiha Madara. I'll give you a hint. Madara allows, for the sake of speeding up the process further. What? Is the immediate question. I'm training you and teaching you for the same reason that the other children in your class get taught early. That's it? A deep heaving breath to continue again. That's all you're getting from me, brat. Naruto lets it go, but he does give distracted and concerned glances towards Ji-san. Occasionally the coughing and raspy breathing doesn't stop and Madara can say goodbye sometimes before he leaves. Tell me what you learned today. Madara's voice can barely escape his mouth. Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei showed us how to throw kunai. We can't have our own yet, they said, but Iruka-sensei said I was really good for someone who never threw one before. Madara's breathing calms, and he listened with a smile as Naruto recounts his day. Naruto can't help but wonder, is this old man the Uchiha Madara? Are you gonna die? Naruto asks quietly, voice somber but steady. Tsukimi is not surprised at Naruto's question. He has always been quicker on the uptake than his fellow orphans. She could hardly lie to him. Yes. She croaks. It was inevitable. She was old, there was no medicine for that. Not that she would buy it. Every bit of money she had would have to go to the children if they weren't going to be provided for by Konoha's council. And if they did, She wanted what money she had to go to her granddaughter who rarely had time to see her given her busy life trying to get her bakery up and running. "Do you have any family?" Naruto poses another question, and she would not be surprised if he had managed to tell her thoughts from her expressions. Tsukimi smiles at the concerned boy. "Yes dear, my family is very beautiful. I miss them when they aren't here." Naruto fidgets with the line of his shorts, looking down. "What's family like?" She smiles wider. "Family is wonderful Naruto-kun, words can't describe to you the love and happiness family brings you. One day you're going to have a family of your own, and you'll realize too that there is nothing you won't do to protect and make them happy too." She goes on to tell stories both funny and sad at Naruto's behest, and unknowingly impresses upon him. Family is wonderful. Naruto and the other orphans are not woken up by Tsukimi the next morning, and Naruto has decided it's his responsibility to let someone know. His first and only stop is the Hokage's office. He doesn't bother going to the academy for the rest of the week. Tsukimi Bakken died. I don't know what to do now. Shizu kneels down before the crying boy and pulls him into a hug. "Don't worry sweetie, everything's going to be fine." Naruto is one of few that are given their own apartment, with a caretaker that stops by once a week with some frozen meals and teaches him how to cook and clean. He is one of the only kids at the orphanage who isn't placed into foster care after the process is rushed following Tsukimi's death. And he thinks he knows why. His first encounter with death is something he remembers intensely. "Jigi. Are you my grandfather?" "Yes Naruto. I am." Single Tomoe Sharingan meets triple Tomoe. Training barely changes, but Madara is going in full force teaching in comparison to before. It is true that small chakra reserves are easier to control at first. Madara agreed after listening to what the academy instructors had to say about it from Naruto. However, easy doesn't always mean best. Some chakra control exercises can't be learned unless you have a certain amount of chakra. People not born with the potential for large reserves like you or myself could never hope to achieve the utmost perfected chakra control. Why can we learn it and other people can't? Naruto asks astutely. Madara had known at some point he would need to explain exactly what made them different to normal people. He hadn't expected Naruto to catch on so quickly. Shared smarts was a blessing and a curse. "I will only explain this to you once. You must never tell anyone what I am about to tell you until you are powerful enough that it won't matter. Do you understand me?" Madara's question was firm, and his eye dangerously sharp. Naruto only nodded in response. His Sharingan read Madara's lips so that he could remember forever. "Good," Madara sighed and leaned back into the wooden throne. "I will first need to tell you the history of the Uchiha and Senju." And it went on for nearly 2 hours. Naruto sat patiently but enraptured with Madara's tale. The Uchiha bloodline's origin, the link between the Senju and Uzumaki. Just what it was that he and Madara were different from the rest, with an embarrassing speech on how babies were made thrown in. To Naruto, it may have well been torture. He regretted asking after the first 5 minutes. "Your mother, while not showing it in any way, possessed my genes which were passed on into you. That is why you look so different to your parents, because you look like me instead." "But why aren't they here?" Naruto asks morosely. "Why did they die if they were so strong?" Madara stays silent for a few moments, looking at his hands on the top of his cane. "It is because of me," Madara states in monotone. "My dream to bring peace upon with world drove another like-minded man to take up my goal, Tsuki no Mi." "What?" "Tsuki no Mi was my plan to force the world into an inescapable, perfect genjutsu. One that would control all beings to submit, and each person would have their individual utopia to reside in forever. The problem with my plan was that I needed the Rinnegan, the combined DNA of Uchiha and Senju, along with the 9 Baijuu, and a lifespan that would allow me to fulfill the plan at the correct time. I did not have that time, so I made an apprentice out of an Uchiha to fulfill it for me." "What's that got to do with Kasan and Tosan being dead?" Naruto asks, stomach dropping. Madara looked up from his hands, and Naruto is reminded that the old man isn't strong enough to keep the Sharingan on all the time anymore. A fading charcoal eye looks him in his crimson ones. Naruto held his tongue. He wanted to shout out all of the anger that was boiling in him. He didn't want to say something that would turn the only person he had against him. "Naruto." Madara calls, softer than he ever had. "No matter what I have done, and how evil I may appear to you now, you can always trust that from now on, I would do anything in my power for you. How am I supposed to believe you?" Naruto leapt to his feet, face red with fury. "You still haven't told me why they're dead and now it feels like you might have killed them. I haven't done anything since meeting you to make you believe that I am your enemy. At least listen to my words before you decided to kill me." Naruto looked stunned. I wasn't going to. He trails off, unsure what to say to something that hadn't even crossed his mind. Madara looks like he misjudged the reaction too by the way he sucks his lips in, a semi-frustrated expression. So he begins to talk again. My apprentice killed her innocence. Extracting a Baijiu from a person kills them. They may manage to last a short while without dying afterwards, but there has been no record of anyone actually living. It is only because of how powerful your mother's chakra was that she managed to survive so long after the extraction, and if she had been given medical attention then she may have lived long enough to raise you. The problem is that a female Jinchuriki's seal is at its absolute weakest when they are giving birth. My apprentice took advantage of that to obtain the QB sealed within her. I don't know how he knew where she would be. That information should have been kept secret. Giving birth to you, having the strongest Baijiu taken out of her, and then not receiving medical help because the threat of the QB destroying the village was all too much for her to live. If she had the choice, she would have stayed with you as all parents want. Madara breaths deep, ancient body not able to deal with so much talking at once. Your father understood that there was no hope of your mother surviving, so he sought to make a new Jinchuriki. You. I'm a Jinchuriki? No. Madara denies. Kushina took over the sealing ritual, and used the power that your father was going to use in order to send the QB away. She couldn't bear the thought of you suffering as she did, regardless of what Konoha needed. On the brink of death, she made a decision that would leave her despised by village officials. But at least give a better chance of her son living happy and healthy. Both of your parents suffered terrible wounds to save you from the QB. Given that your father lived long enough to attempt turning you into the new Jinchuriki, I would wager that he was strong enough to either kill my apprentice or leave him to lick his wounds for at least a decade later. It probably didn't matter either way. Zetsu was still at large, probably plotting. Being a tool and created in his darkest moments, it wouldn't stop until it fulfilled its purpose. If you had the chance, would you change anything? Naruto asks, somewhat rhetorically. There is no point in dwelling on what I would change. Even if the things I have done remain secret and not a single person knows, it would still be the truthful past. Least of all the past that has had a tangible effect on our reality today. Naruto is quiet, toiling this information dump in his mind for several dozen minutes. Old man, Naruto begins his declaration, drawing Madara's eyes to him. Train me to be the strongest. I'm gonna have a family one day too. I'm not gonna let them down. Several weeks passed since some important revelations changed Naruto's outlook. But the only thing that changed about his training was that Madara was no longer withholding helpful information now that he knew Naruto could keep secrets. Teaching Naruto about the Sharingan was one of many things, as well as other Uchiha jutsu, and while Madara could no longer participate in taijutsu training, he could still use the occasional genjutsu if he was feeling well to help guide Naruto's movements. In the era of warring states, there were taijutsu users everywhere. While fewer in number, they have not changed. They still remain weak in skill and power, and the true taijutsu masters were the only ones in the spotlight. Madara lectures. Ninjutsu and genjutsu did not have the same great repertoires they did after the founding of the hidden villages. Before that, it was important to master each jutsu with immeasurable ability very quickly so that it could be used in battle instead of training to develop new jutsu based off of them. Naruto listens intently as he did pull-ups on a wooden beam, strengthening his body and therefore, his physical energies. So why is taijutsu still so important? We have those jutsu. Now. Naruto barely articulates his sentence through each pull-up. Taijutsu is more an umbrella term that governs all things physical in combat. It is not just forms of martial arts, it is the chase as an enemy runs, it is the speed at which you evade kunai, shuriken, sword strikes, and even jutsu. Most shinobi use ninjutsu and genjutsu as their first and last resorts when it should be the opposite. Using taijutsu conserves your chakra for when it is needed, and the chakra in your body automatically converts itself into the appropriate energy for fueling and repairing your body in the midst of combat. It is more than fine to use your chakra when you see fit, but do you understand what I am trying to tell you? Naruto drops from the beam and grabs his bottle of water, taking several small sips at a time as to avoid spewing it up. He has learned his lesson from the first time he did. He answers his grandfather's question, putting that thought away. Don't leave gaps in your skills. Naruto states. And what do you mean by gaps? Madara presses, making sure that his charge had practice in conversation and also to find out if he had taken his teachings to heart. If you rely on any skill too much and it doesn't work, you might not have any other options to win. Naruto sits down, legs sprawled out. You can't do anything if the only thing you're good at keeps getting countered. If you're not the best as you can possibly be in a world where people can pretty much do anything with chakra, there is always going to be someone better than you to take away everything. Good. Madara leans back in his chair, but not taking his eyes off of Naruto's exhausted but thoughtful face. Something was clearly bothering him though. Could he have the right answer, that took him so long to discover himself? What bothers you, my grandson? Ji-san. Naruto addresses quietly as he looks up at Madara. Can your chakra get stolen? Close. So very close. It depends on what you mean. Madara indulges. I mean, taken away forever. What if I couldn't use chakra anymore? Perfect. Possibly, Madara replies. But it is not a simple matter of just being unable to use chakra ever again. Chakra is built into our bodies from conception, to birth, and to death. If you took chakra away from someone who wasn't a shinobi and never learned to use it, the same effect would be created by doing the same to people like us who train our lives to use this power. They, and we, would die. Naruto looks a bit disturbed at that, and with good reason. I thought Naruto cuts himself off. Didn't you say that the Rikudo Sennin gave humans chakra? Why would he give us a weakness like that? I told you the legend of how the Rikudo Sennin brought peace to the world, by giving humans chakra and teaching them ninchu for cooperation and the active facilitation of peace. Madara corrected, inwardly thrilled that he actually has someone to talk about the point with. You say a legend like you don't believe that's the truth. Naruto observes, dark eyes showing curiosity and not disregard or rejection. Legends are often derived from actual truth. Madara acknowledged. But just the same, they are hardly ever the real truth. You observed yourself just now that the glaring weakness of all beings is that their chakra can be drained from them, killing them, so it stands to reason that we should question why exactly that is. Did the Rikudo build this weakness into us on purpose, or is it something necessary tied to our biology that we need to have this weakness for the Rikudo to teach us how to use chakra in the first place? Naruto considers this for a few moments. I think both could be as likely as each other. Naruto thought aloud, eyes narrowed in thought. I don't know anything that could say that the Rikudo Sennin was really a good guy fighting for peace. Maybe he used pain and death to terrorize people into submitting to his will of peace? Reasonable, given the information I have taught you. Madara admits. But the Rikudo would have left a darker legacy upon the world had that been the case. After he died, his sons continued a legacy of war between them, as evident by the never-ending conflict between the Uchiha and Senju, and it could easily be argued that they are the cause of the 1,000-year strife in the era of warring states. It was they who showed the world how to use chakra against your fellow man. It could have been that they were using what they were taught by their father, but it is more likely the reason behind that conflict was because of personal behavior instead of their father's legacy. Why is that more likely? The sage is just a legend now. It's not like there's anyone left that still practices ninju. True, Madara admits. But consider what I told you before. It is not as though the Rikudo left a legacy of suffering on the world. The hearts of the people he brought peace to did not change, only their perceptions of his sons. He went far and wide, to every corner of the world to spread his religion, and they passed on their knowledge to their offspring, teaching them that the sage was a man of goodwill and that his sons were misguided and irresponsible, and that is a legacy that was still visible in the world until less than 100 years ago. The Uchiha and Senju were regarded as nothing more than warmongering tribesmen, undeserving of the power they were born with. But then they forgot. Naruto realizes. When the Uchiha and Senju banded together, everyone else banded together too in desperation so they would have the power to fight back, when the Uchiha and Senju both wanted real peace for once. And so they forgot their own legacies, and brought upon the age of the hidden village. Madara smiles, pleased at his grandson's reasoning. They sought more and more power and then forgot why over the span of 100 years, before sinking into the same pit they sought to never fall in. Might is right. They became even worse than the Uchiha and Senju ever were. They employed tactics such as attacking small and harmless communities to provoke responses from other villages, and kidnapping children with Kekkei Genkai in order to give themselves strength, instead of earning it on their own. Like Kasan. And the Hyuga girl. Indeed. Was all Madara had left to say on that matter. But back to what I was saying earlier. Everything has a weakness. Individual jutsu have weakness in opposing chakra natures. Genjutsu can be broken, but only think on this weakness of possessing chakra that could be stolen as something you need to improve all of your skills for. Chakra can only be stolen by jutsu more powerful than the chakra itself. It is a natural weakness in your body, but it can be improved, even though the answer for the occasion may not be as simple as having stronger chakra. We have talked about this. Do not rely on a single thing to save you, or that thing will betray you by not being what you need it to be. Not even the Sharingan can be the key to open every lock. A labored breath. Perhaps it's better that you experience it for yourself. Combat will be revealing for you. Madara hands the boy a fresh-looking, small book. Bingo book, Land of Fire South. Pick your mission well, and do not leave until you are certain you are ready to. Getting blood on your hands for the first time is no simple matter. A terrible incident involving their distant relatives occurs, and Madara has little good to say about the dead. He seemed to have a view on family that kept his immediate relatives in higher regard. They got what they deserved. How cruel, grandfather. Do you not love your family as you love me? Madara doesn't so much give an eye roll at his grandson's sarcastic remark. Naruto was well aware what Gigi thought about those who betrayed him. There was only one survivor. Sasuke is in my class and it was his big brother that did it. Weak. He didn't finish the job. Mean. Madara goes off on another lecture. The fact that even one survived means that there may be some foul play, and I doubt that just one man killed an entire clan. No, there may be more to this tale than meets the eye. Perhaps my apprentice lived after all. Naruto narrows his eyes. Madara smiles at that. It was easy to stoke the flames of determination within a hot-blooded boy like his grandson. What would you do if I were to die tomorrow? Before or after I stopped laughing? Naruto is back to being dry. Madara's brow twitched at his grandson's response. Suddenly, his sense of humor wasn't so funny when it was turned against him. As it was, however, Madara whacked him on the head with his cane. Ow! You're a wily little fox. What happened to the rugrat that used to beg me for jutsu? He realized he was getting the jutsu either way. Naruto made an annoyed face. Too bad you're a brat who can't use them all yet. Madara dismisses that comment. His grandson might think he was going soft. You'd keel over if you tried one at your age, old man. Children these days. No respect and no skill. Old people. Mush for brains and smell no matter how much they shower. Naruto yelps when Madara strikes him again with the cane. Alright, alright. Under the cover of night, 9-year-old Uchiha Naruto moves swiftly through tall trees and windy weather. His grandfather told him this would be his final test. If a shinobi was to thrive in this cursed world, no matter their lineage, then they must learn to kill. Naruto had spent the past week tracking a group of missing nin that had been terrorizing neighboring towns of Nami no Kuni. He had a sword tucked to his waist in order to compensate for the lack of reach he had on adults. No matter how unskilled they were, they still had bigger bodies. If they managed to grab him at his size and physical strength, it could be all over. He extends his sensory ability, and finds his prey within it. 13 signatures. Good. They're only a few hundred meters away. His Sharingan swirls into life, and 3 Tomoe in each peer ominously into the darkness. Naruto reaches the camp, and sees what his sensory power could not. 4 women and a child locked up in a slave's cage, looking unharmed for the most part but still terrified. Their chakra resonates in distress. Don't you worry now, sweethearts, a shabby-looking man leers at them. We're going to take real good care of you, ain't that right, boss? The man looks around when he doesn't get a reply. Boss? Bo-erk. He drops to the cold ground when a kunai hits him between the eyes, and unfortunately draws the attention of the rest of the camp. Naruto swoops in behind another bandit before more alarm can spread and puts his sword through the rogue's back out of his chest. There he is. Another howls, and the last 5 turn to the intruder. He's just a kid. The same one exclaims. That brat still killed a boss. Get him. The bandits draw the swords and descend upon Naruto. One swipes clumsily, hoping to catch the boy in the chest and end it quickly. His underestimation rewards him with a quickly flicked kunai in the throat. The remaining 4 are more cautious in approaching. But to Naruto, it doesn't matter. They all die tonight. Not fighting the surge of adrenaline, he attacks the one who is holding his sword a bit too loosely and gives the blade a good push to one side with his own. He quickly makes a chopping motion against the bandit's hand, lopping off several fingers. He is forced to dodge an incoming kick from another before he can finish the man off, and reels back when the erratic swipes attempt to make him flee. His attacker resembles a weed in the wind with how haphazardly his arms are moving, and all Naruto needs is one swift cut to the culprit's head, going straight down vertically from the top of his head, and when the sword stops, it is resting in between 2 halves of the nose. The last 2 attackers halt in their tracks unwillingly, and drop to ground like puppets with their strings cut upon gazing into Naruto's hypnotic eyes. Naruto has a perfect line to finish of the 2 unconscious bandits and the other one currently screaming his head off after losing his fingers. He sheaths his sword and weaves his hands through several hand signs as he takes a deep breath. Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu. The screaming intensifies for only a moment, and disappears before their ashes do in the wind. Naruto escorts the terrified women and little girl to the nearest village, where he turns in the heads of the missing nin and receives a hefty reward that he needs to seal into a scroll in order to take back home. They were bad people, Ji-san. Naruto reveals in a solemn tone. Really bad. He is under no illusions as to what they would have done to the women if he hadn't gotten there in time. His grandfather has given him the talks and lectures on issues like this, and tells him that there really are bad people like that in the world. The women, as a token of gratitude, swore not to speak a word of what he looks like to the authorities that question them. He wasn't one to pressure people after experiencing something like that, but he knows that he isn't strong enough to beat every enemy that would come after him for the mere fact that he has the Sharingan. Did you run into any problems? As usual, Madara is more concerned for his grandson than for some strangers, but he wasn't so callous to the point of being unsympathetic. Not a problem. Naruto stuffs some food into his mouth that Madara prepared for them both. I expected it to be more trouble than it was. And the fight itself? Naruto pauses before he can put more noodles into his mouth, and carefully considers his answer. It was fun. Naruto admits slowly. I could feel my heart pounding, and Madara stops him by putting a hand on his head and ruffling the black spikes. Now, you have tasted true combat. Madara speaks gravely. But there will be many more foes in your future. Stronger, and faster than the ones you fought. Do you understand a little of what it means to be strong now? Naruto swallows and nods. Madara has told him that experience was the only way to truly measure one's own strength, and he felt that the fight could have easily gone the other way if the enemy had only been a bit smarter and more aware of their surroundings. He understands now, the mountain-sized difference between his strength and his grandfather's, and resolves to work twice as hard to obtain an even greater power. 11-year-old Naruto made his way to the hideout, his shoulder-length spiky black hair swishing with the wind. He decided he wanted his hairstyle to be like his grandfather's, and was allowing it to grow longer. He is so absorbed in his training that often he doesn't even bother going to the academy. Naruto doesn't think that he has the time to listen to the same old stuff on repeat for the next 2 years until he graduates and makes a greater effort to train himself past his current limits. His grandfather helps, of course, providing a wisdom that Naruto had never really appreciated up until his first kills little under 2 years ago. He absorbs everything that Madara has to say, masters every jutsu, and scrapes up every shred of energy. He has to make himself not just stronger, but the strongest. Madara lectures him in strategy, history and shinobi as a whole with their many styles in Kekkei Genkai, and pushes him to his absolute limit in taijutsu training. Swordplay, genjutsu, Sharingan, Shurikenjutsu, and quite a bit of medical ninjutsu. There are many things to learn and Naruto wants to master them all. Naruto knows all the forms by now, but committing them to muscle memory and actually being strong enough to use them was a different story. On the days that his grandfather is too sickly to watch and help, Naruto would either train on his own or go to the academy if he was in need of a day to relax. He aces his exams and wipes the floor with everyone during taijutsu spars, and it frightens off the less confident students. Naruto also develops an interest in Fuinjutsu, not because of his heritage inclining him towards it, but because he doesn't want to get caught by a seal that could potentially lead him to powerlessness. As with everything he learns, he studies this art rigorously. Not to mention that Fuinjutsu was basically untouched on seals or barriers that could enhance his training. His grandfather was the closest thing he had to Seal Master Sensei, but Madara hadn't actually needed them to train. Not when he had Hashirama constantly testing his mettle. Madara was only lesser to Hashirama in reputation. Konoha had made sure that it forgot how Madara had once been Hashirama's equal, rivaled him blow for blow, and was once regaled as an unstoppable monolith of power, even having Hashirama on the receiving end of what was possibly the only instance of Uchiha mercy up until that point. Better in a great many fields, taijutsu a mere one of them, but Hashirama gained a certain something that outclassed Madara, Shinjutsu. If he had known where to learn Shinjutsu at the time, perhaps he would have beaten Hashirama in the state he was without the Rinnegan or the man's cells hitching a ride in his body to keep him alive. As someone with similar powers to Naruto, he made the perfect teacher to reach his full potential, and what he could not teach, Naruto had the time gifted from youth to seek out his answers. Eventually, Naruto just quits going to the academy. He was required to sit in a meeting to discuss his future with the Hokage and 4 academy administrators to make it evident that the program was not helping him grow. And since early graduation was prohibited after the Uchiha incident, he had nothing to do in class besides go over the same points he already knew several times a day. Mind-numbing. Tsunade agreed easily, telling him only to train even harder with the time given to him, and as she did so the academy admins folded like wet paper and their arguments disappeared into nothingness. He was still required to show up for at least 6 months a year in order to make sure his literacy skills were up to scratch, and also to instill some of that Konoha spirit, but 6 months a year to train in exchange was a worthy sacrifice. So he had 2 years to train himself as much as possible before being tossed into Junon life. He hoped that the pay was alright. Looking around to make sure he wasn't being followed, and sensing around for good measure, he carefully enters the hideout as usual. Something was off though. Gigi was weaker, but he could still usually at least feel his presence. He couldn't feel his grandfather's chakra. "Ji-san?" Naruto called out, voice echoing through the cave. Naruto made his way further and spotted his grandfather sitting in his usual chair. But something was wrong. Naruto still couldn't sense the strong chakra that should be there. "Jigi?" Naruto tried again. He tried to shake his grandfather awake. No response. "Wake up, Ji-san." Naruto shook harder in panic. His mind registered the ugly truth, but the boy still wanted his grandfather to wake up. Naruto collapsed to his knees, and for the second time he could remember, broke down crying. He sat there on the dirty cave floor, and remembered the times he shared with the last of his family. 6 months later Tsunade smiles as the young Uzumaki enters her office. Naruto picks the days well to ask for help, seeing as no one else was around. "Happy 12th birthday, Naruto." More stern and serious than she remembers. "Thank you, Hokage-sama. What you here for?" She asks him casually. "I want to take the graduation exam." "You have good timing. Your age group is about to go through their own exam. If you can wait 2 weeks, you can take the test with them." "I can." Naruto replied simply. "Good," Tsunade smiled. "I need you to wait while my assistants get the paperwork ready. You will need to attend the last few weeks but I probably won't be able to get you in time if you sign up any later. Are you sure you still want to go through with it?" "I am sure. I do not want to wait any longer than I need to." "Alright then. Take a seat in the waiting room. Shizune will be there as soon as she can to help you fill in the forms." Soon being 10 minutes later, and yet it still felt like forever. "Uzumaki Naruto?" Shizune calls. Naruto stood up and approached her, glad the eternity of waiting was fading away. "Sorry to keep you waiting," Shizune gives a sheepish smile. "It's been pretty intense with the Junon exams coming up. There are quite a few clan heirs in this class so we need to run things by their parents a bit more than usual. Just put down your details here so we can put you into the academy system. You don't need to do anything besides get your photo taken if you graduate, and it stays that way right up until you get chosen for promotion." "What is this section meant to be?" Naruto asked politely, eyeing the word stipend mission credit. "Oh, this means that people who aren't supported by their families will still receive a stipend from the village until they are qualified to start taking on more missions and support themselves." That was good news, Naruto thought. He hadn't saved a dime since Tsukimi Bakken died and he was put into a crummy little apartment. All of the money he got went into making sure he had the food and tools to train and recover. He would repay the village with the results of his training, of that he was sure. He was currently dirt poor. Naruto signs all he needs to, determination still burning in his heart. "I'll make you proud, old man." That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.